Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Today I'm going to be unboxing my brand new Solana Saga phone. Now this thing is really cool. I've owned a lot of cool phones over the years with niche and funny features because I spent most of my career as a mobile authentication and security researcher. So, I've had Linux phones, I've had Windows phones, I've had phones with a built-in fan, I've had phones with RGB, I've had all kinds of wacky doodle stuff. And I've had the first of everything for the most part. So it's always fun to see a new device that has a first, and this phone has the first ever built-in hardware cryptocurrency wallet. So what's built into the Saga is a built-in seed vault is what they call it, which is kind of like a source of a cryptographic guarantee, like a ledger or some kind of other hardware wallet device for your phone. So as long as you got your phone, you got your hardware key, and you can make cryptocurrency payments anywhere you go, which is really cool for if you're a crypto maximalist and you believe that in the future you'll be able to use your crypto on the go. Well, just like how you can register a credit card or bank account to your phone and pay with Google Pay or Apple Pay or whatever, if you're able to register your wallet directly with your phone in a secure way that doesn't allow kind of people to scan your phone at the register and pwn you, or you know steal your phone and pwn you. This is a great way to do it. But the recommendation is probably still going to be to keep a small amount of money in a hot wallet that you send to your phone and probably keep the rest somewhere else. That's always good advice with crypto. Don't keep your money in the hot wallet, guys. Don't do it. All right. Let's do a little bit of background before I show you the device. So, first of all, this thing is basically a rebranded Essential phone. Now remember this picture of the Essential phone because when I show you the device itself, it's going to look awful familiar. The Essential phone came out around 2017, and this thing was supposed to be a flagship killer. They were trying to compete with OnePlus. They were trying to compete with mid-market. At that time, Huawei still wasn't banned in the U.S. There was Axon too. There were all these mid-market Chinese manufacturers that were producing devices that were actually great, way better than Samsung's garbage, because around this time Samsung was truly trash. I think this is around when they introduced the Bixby button and other wonderful decisions. And they were producing phones that had a better camera, better battery life, roughly equivalent performance, sometimes even better performance, and they were usually significantly cheaper. They're usually in between $300 and $600. And so the term flagship killer came about. Essential phone, an American company. They're still going to manufacture their phone in China as everybody else does, but they're hoping to become kind of the American OnePlus, I guess, that they were going to be creating these bare bones flagship killers. But I didn't even have an Essential phone. They were kind of a flop. They didn't really do anything exceptional. They were relatively expensive for what you got. It was a good high performance phone. I think they retailed around $500 with sales and stuff at the time because they were essentially always on sale after launch because they didn't perform exceptionally well. They were not a bad phone by any stretch of the imagination, and almost everyone I knew who had one was very happy with it. The best selling points were that they were very easy to root, very easy to put a custom ROM on it, and they also had a really, really long support window relative, especially to their performance. So even long after the writing was on the wall about their company not being economically viable, so to speak, they supported software updates. They went through like, 3 or 4 major system updates, whereas like, for example, my OnePlus, which is my daily driver and still my favorite cell phone manufacturer, I mean, you're lucky to get 3 software updates out of this guy, and then if you wanted more than that, you should have gone with an iPhone. Tough for you. And same even with the mainstream manufacturers like Google with their Pixel and Samsung. So Essential was beloved by many for that particular reason. But after Essential went under, circa 2020 or so, they founded Osem. So Osem is basically Essential resurrected, as far as their About Me says. It's the same engineers, and I'm very much inclined to believe it because the phone looks pretty much identical. And again, memorize this because we're going to see that well, I'll show you the picture again when we get to it, but we're going to see that the Saga looks basically the same. And let's look at a couple of the features that we can see right from the picture. First of all, in-screen portrait camera. Hate these things. Hate them particularly in the middle. Now, again, on my OnePlus, it's on the frickin' corner right there where it doesn't bother anybody. It being in the corner is great because it doesn't really affect your screen. And when gaming, which is a lot of what these kind of high-end phones are for, if you're buying these to browse Facebook, you're kind of wasting your money. When gaming, do you want the corner of your screen covered up where some useless UI elements are, or do you want the frickin' middle of your screen covered up? Well, I'll let you decide. The other thing that they've got is a in-screen or rear rather than in-screen fingerprint reader. So this was really popular around 2017, 2018. This was a killer feature when it came out. Today, it's kind of a hallmark of an older or budget device because in-screen fingerprint readers are way more convenient. But there is actually some advantage to these rear ones. They were very easy to use in your pocket. You were unlikely to accidentally push them. They were more responsive to all of your fingers. The in-screen fingerprint reader, I usually have trouble using it with anything other than my thumb. These tend to work fairly well with your index finger, which is what they're designed for. You're supposed to obviously grip the back of the phone and push it with your index finger as you pick it up. Or some people with their middle finger, depending on how you hold it. What was really cool was some phones around that era, the Razr phone is the only one I can think of, had the fingerprint reader in the power button on the side instead. That was actually a sick feature, except that it only worked with your thumb, obviously. Any other finger would be mad inconvenient to put on the side. But that was the best of both worlds. The rear fingerprint scanner sucks because you have to have a cutout for it in your case, which looks kind of goofy. It's also just in my opinion, not as responsive as the in-screen fingerprint reader. But it is also, as a security guy, I'll tell you, marginally better at actually reading your finger. None of these fingerprint readers are secure. Let's be clear about that. I mean, you're definitely trading off security for convenience. But the in-screen fingerprint readers are a lot easier to trick. They're not as sophisticated, generally speaking. Okay, so let's look at the Saga phone, which I think is Osam's first white label remanufacturer. So companies like Osam and Chinese manufacturers like Oppo and Xiaomi and Huawei to some extent will white label phones for other companies. So this phone is called the Solana Saga. They mention Osam in their branding and say that it's made by Osam, but a lot of the time when a phone is white labeled like this, they won't even tell you who makes it. So Oppo might manufacture the phone, or Xiaomi might manufacture it, or whatever, and then they'll call it like for example, Xiaomi makes the Red Magic. It's difficult. You have to really look into it to find that Xiaomi makes the Red Magic. They don't put it into their advertising. But in this case, Solana is pretty straight up with it. They say that Osam manufactures it everywhere. It does give them some clout because these guys have been doing it for like 5 years. Nobody wants to buy a phone from someone who's, it's their absolute first phone. Even though a lot of the time, in my experience, that very first phone from manufacturers is one of their knockouts, one of their best. Like the earlier aforementioned Razr Phone 1, sick phone, really one of the best of its generation. Anyway, highlight some important features here. So you've got your Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which is already out of date. It's already there's already a Gen 2 out as of the filming of this video. The top-end OnePlus phones will be launching with Gen 2 probably. They're probably already launched, actually, at the time that I record this. There's probably a 10 Pro with a Gen 2 in it already. The Gen 1, 8 Plus Gen 1 is a huge improvement over the 800 series that preceded it. The 800 series had a lot of thermal problems. They tended to overheat. They tended to overheat on a sunny day doing nothing. You could be just browsing the internet with your screen brightness high and they would overheat. When gaming, they are kind of a nightmare. My OnePlus 9 overheats after just a few minutes of gaming at anything above room temperature. They just did not have good heat dissipation. They were trying to juice as much power out of them as they could because they were not at all performance competitive with Apple's M1 chip that launched around the same time. Plus, they added a 5G module. That was the first generation that had 5G. There were a couple in the 700 Gen, I think, but the 800 series is the first one that has 5G built into almost all of them. And with that, combined with the performance they were trying to eke out of them, they couldn't keep up. And even the phones that had, I have like a Chinese manufacturer phone that's advertised as a gaming phone, actually has a built-in fan in order to keep it cool, a tiny little like 60mm fan inside the case. And even that thing can't tame those 800 series chips. They're wildly heat consumptive. 8 Plus Gen 1, much better thermal performance across the board. They did manage to improve their performance. They're still not really caught up with the Apple M1 chips, but you know, if you don't want to deal with iPhone, they're quite good. You're going to be able to do all the same stuff. The real killer features of the Saga phone are that it has a tremendous amount of storage, 512 gigabytes. They probably achieved this by using a slower kind of internal storage unit. They probably didn't use the top of the line, what do they call them, DIMM chips, in order to achieve this amount of storage. So we'll see if that affects its gaming and other performance, but that's still a tremendous amount. It's also a phone that features a dual SIM slot, and one of the SIM slots is a SIM slash micro SD slot. So you could also put a 512 micro SD slot in there and have a gigabyte of storage on your, a terabyte of storage on your phone, which is a tremendous amount of storage for a mobile device. And I think you would have to pay extremely top dollar to get that competitive storage anywhere else. The rear camera, I couldn't find the manufacturer out there, which means that they probably bought it from a third-party manufacturer. Based on it being 50 megapixel, which isn't necessarily top of the line, and megapixel count isn't everything as well, I'm going to assume that they probably bought it from Samsung or somebody like it. It's probably not your best camera unit. We'll try it out, but it's probably not going to be top of the line, especially if they're not advertising the manufacturer front and center. Like, for example, if you go to OnePlus's product pages, you're going to see the Hasselbrand camera partnership advertised, like front and center. And it retails for $1,000 currently, this guy, which is a lot, let's be honest, for the first generation of a phone that has basically one cool feature. And on eBay, these bad boys are going for $1,800 right now, so this is a pricey phone. Let's see if it's worth it. Okay, first of all, what do you get in the box? You're supposed to get some password keys that allow you to recover your seed phrase if you lose it, so I'm going to try not to show those off. They're probably in here with the instruction manual, and you get a fancy SIM tool, which is always great. They don't make you hunt down a toothpick or something to open it. You get, boy, let's see. I already slid this thing out. You get your very bog standard slide out case with some Solana branding in there, but not a lot. A very, very generic box. You can see on the back that OSIM is clearly listed as the manufacturer, though, so good on them, again, for being transparent there. Sometimes it's hard to figure out who makes your white label phone. And now let's get to the device. Do the big video for this, because this is fun. So first, bog standard screen. You'll note your camera right there in the center. Boy, is that annoying. Let's check it out when it's on. Well, they did something cool here. You can still actually use that portion of the screen. So that doesn't necessarily exclude it. In fact, here I'm going to go into developer options, and you can see that it's just a little hole there. It's not too intrusive. As far as these like pinhole in-screen portrait cameras go, this one's not bad. This one's not bad. That doesn't bother me too much, but I would still much rather have had it in the corner. But, you know, lifetime selfie takers will probably prefer to have it in the middle because having it in the corner makes it difficult to line up your selfie correctly. All right, on the back we have the fingerprint reader. So again, a little bit of a cheaper kind of way to go than the in-screen fingerprint readers that are pretty ubiquitous on high-end Android phones these days. This guy, convenient, if anything, but still, better to have it in your screen so you don't have to have it cut out in your case and reach for it. The camera assembly, if I go back to OSIM's product page, you'll see the camera assembly is totally different from the OSIM white label generic one that they show here. They have the horizontal camera setup. This is usually more of a feature phone, cheaper phone camera setup. These pre-built multi-camera setups are relatively high-end, and this is, it looks like, at least a two-camera. So they didn't go with the cheapest, but they also, since they don't advertise the manufacturer, probably didn't go at the highest end either. I can't see anything here that reveals who the manufacturer is, but I do see two lenses. There's your wide angle and your telephoto, and you got your flash there as well. So it's, you know, we'll see. It's probably not bad. One thing that I do hate about this phone, right off the bat, is this such a faux pas of user experience to put the power and the volume buttons on the same side. If you look at my OnePlus 9 for comparison, it's got power And then it's got the do not disturb slider, which is an awesome feature, by the way. This is a do not disturb slider. You can flip up and down engage do not disturb mode, which means you can do it from your pocket or wherever without having to look at the screen. You can obviously do it by touch since it's a physical hardware switch. And it's also really easy to see if it's on or off without consulting your screen, because again, hardware switch. And the volume buttons are on the other side. They're on the other side. That means that you're not going to accidentally turn the phone off while you're fumbling with the volume. But I will give them credit for this. Saga phone, I like that they're green. That's a cool color. The only thing that shows you that this is a Solana phone is this tiny little S down here, which is kind of a bummer. I was expecting like the Razer phone with like an RGB S or something, but this is just carved into the metal frame. Now, in terms of the metal quality, this is solid. This is like a thick piece. This phone is actually probably conservatively a third heavier than my OnePlus 9 with the case on it. This thing is solid metal all the way through. That means when it falls, well, you know how gravity works. Everything accelerates at the same rate. But when this thing hits the ground, it has a lot of kinetic energy. It's going to be a chunker, and we'll see if I break this thing in like 5 minutes, because what happens with that kinetic energy? It transfers into the screen. And if they didn't use top of the line Gorilla Glass for this, if they even went for the, like one gen down, this thing is going to shatter. But because it doesn't have curved edges, because they went with a flat design, these are pretty well resistant to damage. These are pretty tough to break. So I think it's probably going to be fine. I'm going to open up the case, and we'll see what it looks like with the case as well. Yeah, overall, very impressed with the build quality. I haven't seen a phone made of that much metal probably ever. I mean, most phones have some plastic in them in order to sort of save on manufacturing costs. My guess is that this is a steel frame with some titanium around there to cut costs. So steel is obviously a lot cheaper than titanium, milled steel especially. Titanium is really hard to CNC and process, so all titanium phones tend to come at a significant premium and tend to only be on the top end flagships. But I think if I had to guess, the whole side here is probably titanium and the back is probably solid steel, which is again cool for build quality. Definitely has a fun feel to it. But of course, once you put your stupid case on there, it doesn't matter. And I would not use this thing without a case just because of the significant weight that it has. You usually don't see clear cases like this outside of phones that actually have stuff to show off with your clear case. All this thing has is a fingerprint reader and RGB. There is one tiny strip of what looks like LEDs here, which probably powers on for something. Now see, I was trying to power the phone on, I was hitting volume. Thanks for that, UX. Now it doesn't turn on when the phone's powered on. I have the screen on, the LED's not. So I don't know. I don't know what the LED does. Maybe there's something in settings? Probably not. Nope. Is what it is. Uh, so that was my clear transparent case. Did it just come with another? I think I ordered two cases with this bad boy. Case number two. Nope, another transparent one. Nope, that's the screen protector. Screen protectors, guys, 2023 screen protectors are trash. They are way, way, way weaker than the screen of the phone. This thing, if it's made of any reasonable Gorilla Glass, like for example, I've never had a screen protector on this OnePlus 9. I've probably had it for 2 or 3 years. It doesn't have a scratch on it. Why? Because the only thing that can scratch these screens is metal or diamonds, guys. These are solid. People put screen protectors on to stop them from breaking. It's not going to help you with your shatter. If the phone drops, then that impact is going to transfer into the screen anyway. If it falls in a way that transfers impact to the screen, your screen protector is not going to save you. It's still going to shatter. So don't bother with screen protectors in 2023. Waste your time, money. They get scratched more easily than the screen of your phone does. The only exception is if you work in like a factory or something and there's a good chance that your phone is going to be exposed to metal scraping it hard, because that's the only thing that scratches modern phone glass. And that's probably true of the Solana Saga as well. We should hope. I don't know. Maybe they got something about the screen. I couldn't find any information about what generation of Gorilla Glass they use, which probably means it's not top of the line. It's probably like Gorilla Glass 4 or 5, but I don't know. I'm not going to try it, so I'm not going to scratch the $1,000 phone. Okay, let's look at one last thing before we're done. Let's check out the camera performance. All right, let's take one photo of my back wall here because my back wall has a lot of variation in lighting. Now, a good phone is going to be able to, I'm going to even take one with my OnePlus so we have a comparison. A good phone is going to be able to accommodate for the fact that the room is dark, the wall is very dark, and the uh, lights that I have there are very bright. So, for example, my stream here looks pretty ugly. Those lights are blown up. Those lights are blown up, right? Because that's a cheap webcam. And it's not going to be able to handle the light balance. A good camera is going to be able to process that light balance well. Okay, so this thing doesn't have auto rotate on by default. That's an interesting choice. So that is a pretty good image. I would say it handled the white balance really well. It's not really blown out. It was able to process that fairly well. So this is actually just off this one shot, a pretty good camera. Probably a contender. My OnePlus 9 is better. I'm going to hold up both for comparison, and you'll see it's pretty obvious why it's better. I took that roughly the same shot. So if you look at, let's try this. There we go. OnePlus 9 versus Solana Saga phone. You can see that Saga phone did not do the lighting well at all. It is way darker. Whereas my OnePlus captured a lot of the light bloom true to life, that bloom behind the Samurai, for example, from my overhead lights. It captured the bloom above my little Rick and Morty guy from the overhead lights. And there's a lot more detail. You can see my nebulas and novas and everything in all their full lighting. Whereas the Saga, everything kind of got darkened and washed out because it just couldn't keep up with having to dim the picture to make up for the bright lights of my little background blue lights there. So good camera, not great camera. If you like a darker picture, sure. If I zoom in on a tiny feature, let's go OnePlus versus Saga, zoomed in on the nebula back there. So, man, this is hard to do. All right, so Saga, obviously very, very dark. Can't make out the features. Let me zoom in a little more on the OnePlus to make this fair, because I think I zoomed out a little too much. Zoom them both out a bit. There we go. It's about the same frame. Okay, so Saga, much darker. Wasn't really able to keep up with that. Oh man, what is the screen time out on this thing? 5 seconds. Oh, that was the auto dimming feature. Woo, that's aggressive. So, look at it go. Much darker. Wasn't able to capture quite as much detail there, but you could argue that the OnePlus 9's picture is a little bit oversaturated. It's a little bit blown out, whereas the Saga's is mm, it's darker. It's definitely a preference, but by no means a bad camera. Absolutely not. And okay, one more thing before we sign off here. Let's look at the actual killer feature to this phone, which is the D App Store that it ships with. So in addition to shipping with the Play Store, Solana ships with the D App Store, which is where you're going to download your DeFi apps, and these apps you can install onto the phone. Most of these are probably going to be like React Native at this point because developers have only had a few months uh, to put these together. I know our company for sure is it's a React Native version, which is fine. But we'll see probably in the future Android native games and dApps come to the store with native speed performance and native equivalent features. So while that's loading, I'll also show off we've got the seed vault here where I haven't made any yet, but I can add new seed phrases, which is basically like adding a wallet. So I can have multiple wallets here to interact with different apps, so I can limit my exposure or segregate my finances, whatever. And okay, that's the Solana Saga phone. Hope you enjoyed. This is the DApp Store experience, waiting for it to load. So that could probably improve. But otherwise, very much not a bad phone. very much not worth $1,000 phone. But if you are a Solana maximalist and you think that this ecosystem is really cool and you want to support what they're doing, pick one of these up because it's by no means a bad phone. And if you like a chunky chunker, a true metal phone that you could throw at somebody's head and probably kill them, this is the phone for you because this guy is seriously the heaviest phone I think I have ever held in my hand. If you want a phone you can hold in one hand, do not buy this phone because this is a freaking workout right here. All right. Well, hope you enjoyed that. Peace.